9 seconds thinking, 1 second acting. When it comes to Toastmasters, I always ground myself by beginning every speech with the three sentences: be here now. One of my first mentors in Bella Toastmasters sadly has long since moved on. I'm hoping to touch base with him sometime before the end of the year. Taught me this and has always played a central role in my role as a public speaker. First of all, be present, find yourself, realize the reality of the moment. Be here and be don't think about anywhere else. Just be show the everyone in the room that you are part of them and you are going to communicate to every possible seat and potential seat in the audience. And now, tomorrow is an illusion, yesterday is a dream, today is a gift. That's why they call it the present. And that I think is one of the most important nuances of all perspective. Even though in the time it takes for your body to detect the visual and audio senses that my physical form is sending to it, it's already the past, and we are all simply a memory. And yet, in this, as we ride the wave of this moment, staring blindly into the event horizon, we can only appreciate memory for what it provides us as we contemplate the future and plan for it in in the present. It's one of those nuances of human existence that we fail to appreciate because we're too speculative of the future and encumbered by the past that we fail to see the make peace with the three versions of ourselves therein.
Hello, welcome to the Evolving in Toastmasters podcast at the Journey to You channel. I am Nick, your host, and we are here to talk about Toastmasters and the experiences that we've had in Toastmasters so we can help other people understand the values, the benefits, what you can get out of it, and how you can use it to further your career, to help your personal life and to help your life overall. So today I have a guest. Marc is here to talk about his experiences. So right now I want to pass it over to you, Marc, and have you talk about where were you working when you joined Toastmasters?
Well, working is a bit of a generous term. I started off as an O-Rise in the Director of Public Works over at Abington Proving Ground. I figured after my first year there, I probably needed to find some kind of professional hobby, and I heard good things about Toastmasters, mostly from my parents, but also just through general word of mouth. And Baylor Toastmasters just happened to be the closest one to me, outside of work hours, of course.
All right. Um, yeah, the Bel Air Toastmasters Club is one of my favorite clubs to visit. Great group there. They're a club that I helped coach in the past. I talked to Joe in the past on the podcast, and we delved into how I was with the club coach, helped re build the club quite a few years ago, and they I think you guys got up to like 35 members at one point. And now after COVID, it's, we're all struggling a little bit, but we can talk about that a little bit later. We're going to get to those Toastmasters part of the interview later. Right now, we're going to have a little fun. We're going to ask some of those lighthearted questions so we can get to know our guests a little bit better, find out who Marc is. And so when we start talking about those Toastmaster related questions, we have a little bit of background about his perspective. And his perspective right now on the bridge of the Enterprise looks pretty good. It'd be better if your seat was positioned
Oh
behind one of
yeah.
those consoles or in the
I need
captain's
to,
chair, but
yeah.
he's up by the view screen.
Well, you don't want to be too far behind when you're giving a speech to whatever Starfleet command or alien race you're opening a comm signal with. So,
All right, so Marc, kind of sticking on the science fiction, probably. What movie can you not resist watching if it's on? Um,
oh goodness, I've got a whole list. of course, the ones that immediately spring to mind are Shawshank Redemption, um,
Good one.
Good Will Hunting, Chasing Amy, Edge of Tomorrow, maybe just throwing random stuff now. The Matrix, all the classic sci-fi, and some other maybe some sleeper stuff that nobody appreciates. Maybe the John Wick movies or Bullet Train. Mostly that, but of course, I'm a sucker for anything that's gets at least 5 Oscar nominations. So
So
American
it's sound
Gangster also recently had to rewatch that. Worth it the second time.
sounds like you're a little bit of a junkie. Do you watch a lot of TV, a lot of movies? Have all your
Oh,
streaming services up to date?
oh no, I only have Netflix, and even if I had more than one streaming service, I could only focus on one show at a time. I like to think of it, and I can never binge watch. Even if you like a show that much, would you really want to just chug it all and not just sip it and savor it like a fine wine? I figure, isn't a show more enticing when you have to wait until next week for the thrilling conclusion?
I have to say, when I'm watching a show with a group, it's nice to have that week between so we can talk about what happened. We can talk about
Exactly.
what
What's going
happened
to
in the episode
happen?
right after. We have those moments where we don't know what's going on, and um, we can theorize and predict what's going to happen. Um, when I'm watching a movie, when I show or movie by myself, I got the phone here, it goes everywhere with me. And in the gym, I'll get on the treadmill and I'll put on a movie or something. So 10 20 minutes here or there. I like binging a show when I'm doing that, and just like maybe I'm not going to get in a full episode most of the time, but I'm on a show and that is what I'm watching until it's done. I just finished Yellowstone. I don't know if you've
Oh
watched
yeah,
any of that, but it's
heard good things about
pretty.
it.
It's a pretty crazy show, um, and I liken it to like Game of Thrones, where it's just uh, kind of anything can happen, um, but you're following these particular people, and you kind of know that they're going to be bad people. They're just going to be bad. Lots of shows are like that. Breaking Bad.
Well,
Um,
yeah, but I think there's been a whole entire there's been a entire movement of no more Mr. Nice Guy on TV. There are no nice TV sitcom dads. There's we just have seemed to embrace the anti-hero. You could blame it or attribute on The Sopranos, but I think that was just a
yeah, that's
spark
right.
that in the chain of culture events we like the anti-heroes because secretly we all fantasize about having that kind of ruthless power and seeing as how they would wield it against other even bigger anti-heroes.
Yeah. So when we were young, it was The Godfather, and then it was
Oh yeah,
Goodfellas and
Goodfellas.
Casino. Those were like
Oh yeah, and I'm a
great.
sucker for
Like,
Scorsese. And I'm a sucker for Scorsese. Don't get me wrong.
so when HBO put out The Sopranos, and the wise guy thing was just it was just great. And then yeah, lots of shows started focusing on the
Yeah.
the really the bad guys, the villains, and a
Now,
lot of
ironically, though,
things.
one of my favorite HBO shows is still The Wire, which seemed to have a more nuanced take on the bad guys. Because in that show, really, there were no true anti-heroes or heroes, even among like all the various factions involved in the show.
Right.
There were just varying degrees of morality, and often it played against how each of them have to navigate them. Ironically, if you have you seen The Wire by any chance?
I've seen a bit of it. It's one of those shows that I'm like,
Okay.
I gotta watch the whole thing at some point
You
because
do,
it's
you
really
do.
great.
It's only about 5 seasons long, but that really is just perfect. It doesn't drag on too long. It doesn't feel too rushed either. And it's also a bit like Game of Thrones in that the main storyline is actually several interweaving storylines involving this Baltimore drug team, these two Baltimore beat cops, various gang rivals, at some point even the Russian mafia, the police commissioner, these various informants on the streets that work with the police, and eventually the local high school. and their teachers, and also, and in the fifth season, the local writers for the Baltimore Sun, and it just delves into how well it to all these different storylines and how they all react with one another, along with varying degrees of morality. And yeah, at the end, there are a few things aren't not everything is tied up at the end, but that's kind of the point. The whole history of drugs in Baltimore doesn't really have an ending. It just has a
Yeah,
various story arc that has to keep going afterward. So,
yeah. Living in the DC area, like that show is
oh
just
yeah,
way too real for me.
yeah.
So
Well,
I
the
didn't
show was
watch it when
actually
it first
written.
came out.
Yeah.
Like
Well, the
I
show was actually written by former Baltimore police detectives, so
I
you know
know.
it's a little too
Yeah.
realistic for it.
Yeah, so like the news was always just about murders and stuff between DC and Baltimore. And just I you couldn't watch the
Well,
news back
DC is
then.
yeah. To be fair, Baltimore's on track to have its lower murder rate this year. So,
Yeah, things have
but
certainly been a
anyway,
little bit better. All right,
yeah.
so we could talk about TV shows and movies all day. So let's switch gears because we only have so much time. Um, so what book are you most likely to give as a gift?
Oh goodness. Do I have to pick just one? Because of course my go-tos for gifts are Stephen Covey's Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, um, the How to
I
Win Friends and
swear.
Influence People. Of course, it's a Toastmaster cliche, but for a reason. Also, Keith Ferrazzi's Never Eat Alone. So anything by Malcolm Gladwell. And I'd also highly recommend, of course, How We Decide by Jonah Donahue, I think his name. Just a book on the science and psychology of decision making. And of course, Super Better, how we can use game theory and gamification to accomplish our goals. You'd
That's
especially love it, I think.
quite a list. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
If you pack that up and bring it to the Lori's holiday party, then I better know which one's yours.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yes, a great list of books. I hope our listeners are jotting those down to order or to give away as well. Um, uh, I'm pretty sure a couple of those have been on other people's lists that I've asked. All right. So, what is the nicest thing anyone's done for you?
Oh God. I I can't even begin to summarize that. My family's been incredibly generous in support of me and my education and all my logistics around the country. I Toastmasters, everyone there has been incredibly nice to me in terms of just supervising, coaching, mentoring, but also just general social activities outside of it. I've met some really great people there who invited me to parties afterward and still do. You, for one, you've been incredibly generous to not only your own club, but all the other Toastmasters you've interacted with. And there's been so many random acts of kindness I've received that I try to pay it forward in return. I I don't always get the time to, but it's something I want to work on, and I think Toastmasters has enabled that.
Yeah, Toastmasters is definitely a great place to be social, to meet new people, to from various backgrounds, and then take you to new places. Um, I know, I know, you and I have been friends for a bit. Had some game nights over at my house. I'm trying to think if there's anywhere we went together. I don't think we've been to a convention together or something like that, but um but we talk about those games and stuff. And you brought some games in that I was like, oh, that's a style that I hadn't played before. I like that, and um, introduced me to some concepts that I wasn't familiar with before. So that's definitely something that we've done for each other, and I could see that with other people that I've hung out with through Toastmasters, that they've introduced me to different things, and it's just a great place to meet people. Um, and get outside of your normal social group. All right. Let's get two more here. What? is the proudest moment of your life so far?
Let's see. Gosh, where do I even begin? I guess it would have to be a recent presentation I gave. Well, not recent, it was last April, but to the at the virtual Joint Safety and Environmental Health Professional Development Symposium online. It's a
Ooh,
consortium of various DoD agencies on. I gave a presentation on climate change impacts on national security and how the Army is addressing them.
oh,
More recently, I
interesting.
guess I also really appreciate giving a few sermons at my church. One was on suicide and how we can work to address it, and another one was on um, food security and instability. And more recently, I gave one on what I call the Earthling Fellowship, how we humans can adopt a more sustainable world with the animals around us.
Wow. So your church, how big is your church?
Oh, fairly small, only about like 150 to 200 members.
So, but you're still speaking. That's a pretty large crowd. You're making an impact speaking in front of those people, um, giving them some information about something that they're not familiar with, and something that's going to help them, something that's going to inspire them to go help other people. Suicide prevention. That's a huge thing, man. That's a great gift that you can give to people. Um,
Definitely.
and then your work in DPW with you know understanding climate impacts there, and then taking that to outside of your work, and how many people were in that presentation?
Oh gosh, only no, probably no more than like a 50 or so, but actually probably less than that, probably 30. It's been so long, but
But
the
think of the
recordings are still
impact that those
available.
50 people have in protecting the environment, and
Right.
you
Sure.
had
No, I
you have
appreciate that.
quite the audience that you've spoken to there. That's incredible. All right, so now we've talked about that big impact. You've written your autobiography. You've written all these stories about your proudest moments of your life, your the impacts other people have made on you. What do you title your autobiography?
Hmm.
It's one of my favorite questions to pose to people. Um,
Excellent.
and people have come up with some really great
Probably
titles.
probably Hello World. That was the first thing I ever programmed in C++, plus plus. Just a simple program that writes Hello World. And much as I swore I would never touch programming again after college, I've suddenly come full circle by having to relearn some M code, PowerFX, and um, various other simple what they call low code languages, just to help me in my career and help with environmental protection and
That's
air
amazing.
emissions calculations. So I think, but it also it's just given me a better understanding of where my own logic lies. I too often see things in just black and white context, and I need to appreciate the nuance therein. And let's face it, most programming when we first learn it is always true or false. That's literally all computers know when you get down to the granular level. But even that compounded has a much more nuanced approach and could even find certain and can even reveal what I call the divine presence of morality when it comes to just decision making. But I won't get into that. That was another sermon I gave on how we humans are more like machines than we give ourselves credit for.
It's pretty wild. Interesting take, yeah. And Hello World works really well with the impact you're making outside of that too, talking to other people. You're out there taking a platform and spreading your your impact. I like the title. I'm sure it's a popular one too for programmers. You write that first program, and that's it's hello world. That's what you do. All right. So now it's time for us to switch gears. We're going to talk about Marc's Toastmasters experience, and I'll give some of my perspective as well. Um, but to do that, we're first question is, as always, Marc, do you remember what brought you to Toastmasters?
Fear and courage at the same time. Fear is all I always like to say is an illusion we create for ourselves, but also a premonition about what is truly dangerous, but also what we consider dangerous and need to see as motivation. Of course, we all have a fear of public speaking, but especially at me. But I think that's what kind of motivated me because when you engage in Toastmasters, you also engage yourself as the audience. You learn more about who you are and what not only what motivates you, but what discourages you. In doing so, I find that what discourages me is also what motivates me because I know that's the biggest, if I can overcome that challenge, who knows what else I can overcome. I know I'm naturally introverted, so I constantly try to break that introversion by seeking out new events and new opportunities to meet people. I think Toastmasters has taught me how to do both professionally and personally.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to break down that fear of public speaking, that fear that keeps you inverted. You know, you get your nice comfort zone and you don't want to break
Right.
out
And I
of it.
figure at the time I was just so desperate for anything that could help me in the job hunt. I figure, why not this?
And why not? This is perfect. So what convinced you or compelled you specifically to join the club that you went to?
Well, it was outside of work hours and close. But I also learned that there among the other clubs, this one also was the largest at the time and offered the most opportunities to meet new people, but also serve a variety of roles.
So you did take an opportunity to sample to go to some other clubs and see what else was out there, and you picked Bel Air, and a fine choice. Yeah, it was a great club at that time, really rolling. Um, so when you joined, you talked a little bit about what you wanted to get out of it. How has that evolved?
I think more recently it's evolved in me just taking on bigger roles. I've served as an area director for twice now, um, I believe I believe it's enabled me to just network a bit more with other clubs and learn more about their styles as well, and also just meet a variety of people and become and learn more about their speech techniques as well.
Yeah, so the leadership track for Toastmasters Club. Um, as a member, you can
Right.
take roles in the meeting. You can be the MC for the meeting. You can run different parts of the meeting, and then there's the club officers that help run the club. And Marc, which officer roles have you served as for club officer?
Oh goodness. Of course, Sergeant at Arms, Secretary, Treasurer, VP of Education, VP of Membership briefly, and yeah, actually, I think that's about it.
All right, hasn't haven't hit them all yet. Neither have I.
Right,
Um,
right.
I haven't been
Yeah.
secretary yet. I think that's the only role I haven't been in a
Ironically,
large
it's
capacity.
probably one of the more challenging and commit and time intensive roles because you basically have to be there almost every meeting you can, and you have to be taking notes constantly and in shorthand, but also after the meeting, f translate them into something more legible and post them accordingly.
Yep.
So I
Yeah.
took that mostly to improve my note-taking skills in other meetings I'm in, and it's helped immensely.
Yeah.
Granted, I
My
kind of well, I won't say I cheated. I just took advantage of OneNote and autocomplete before that even became a thing, and hey, it works.
Yeah, so I've substituted for the secretary a couple times, and I learned quickly that my note taking skills are terrible, and my memory of what happened is also very suspect and needs improvement. So
Yeah.
I found in work meetings that I have to be on top of those notes, and I have to and I'm writing down like almost everything that happens in the meeting, and a lot of time people can come to me and say, "Hey, uh, did we talk about this at the meeting?" And I can go back to my notes and I can check that and I say, "All right, this is
It
it's a
gives
skill
you,
that I've
yeah.
taken out of Toastmasters. I haven't even started the role yet. I've just done it a couple times. I was just like, I'm terrible at this, but now it's like an asset where other people can come to me and ask me about what happened at a meeting that I might not even contribute to anything, and I was just sitting there, being you know as a participant, but not running the show or anything. But I got the notes, so I can support in that aspect. And if I am running the meeting, then you better be certain that I have the action items, I have who's assigned to them, and I have what day we're going to follow up on that or what day it's due. Um, it's That's just something I've taken out of um, being acting as secretary. It's a great role to work in. All right, so that's club leadership. And then Mark mentioned being area director. So that's being in charge of 3 to 6 clubs in a specific region where you can go visit them, closer proximity than some of the other clubs might be. And when you get to the division or the district level, where you got to drive 30 minutes to an hour to get to one of those meetings. And then a lot of those meetings are now virtual, so you can just tune in like this and sit and listen, um, be on camera and contribute, be a part of the meeting, or hybrid meetings where there's people in person or there's people online. Um, but that area director role, I've done it a bunch of times. I think that role gives you the best position to impact those clubs and then take pieces that you've learned in a club and take it outside to another club, and say, all right, hey, you guys are doing this really well. And this club over here is doing this really well. Maybe you should try that as well. And I'm going to take what you are doing well, I'm going to take it to them and say, hey, you guys should try this. Um, that's how some of our the club that I'm in right now, Fort Monmouth, we've picking up picked up some of our new stuff that we do on a meeting, like Joke Master and Listener. The listener role is the area director came in and say, "Hey, you guys don't do this. You guys should try this." Um, so it's a great role to do. You get a lot of experience and be able to spread, you know, other people's experience around as well. All right. So in that role of area director, what is you been able to learn um, and bring back to your club?
Honestly, I couldn't tell you recently. My recent role as area director, I've only had one active club, and the only meetings I've been able to attend are with Harco Toastmasters. I'm sorry, yes, at APG, and only attended a couple of their meetings intermittently. But I've appreciated everything they've done, and especially with some of the roles that they offer, like comment, like I believe they have a separate role for all counter and grammarian, but also a role for listener who picks out a soundbite throughout the day and replay and quizzes us on who can recite when it occurred. So yeah, I that's about all I can relay at this point.
All right, and that's the highest you've gone in the district level so far.
Yes, I'm afraid so. I've been yeah.
So division director is one I don't recommend unless you want to be directly
Really?
involved with the leadership of the district because you are
Uh,
like you're you're like a vice president when it comes to the level of responsibility that you have um, in the district. So if you don't like the direction that the trio, the top three district
oh,
leaders
right.
are going, like it's a hard position to work in because you're working for them. Whereas area director, you're working for those clubs. That's your job is those clubs. Division director, you're taking direction from people and you're trying to get the area directors to maybe do some stuff to help those clubs, and you're in a reporting role. All right, this is what's happening at this level. This is what's happening in this club. It's
Yeah.
you're interfacing with that, and you're just passing information. And it's actually very similar to a role that I did for work before the job that I'm doing now. I was a technical advisor for the government, so I was interfacing with contractors and the software development team, the firmware development team, um, and the RF techniques team. So we have these three different teams, and they're all we're doing these bi-week bi-weekly syncs where we're talking about what's getting accomplished, where the program's going next, what we're working on. And my job was basically to be that middleman and say, all right, this is what they reported, and this is where they're going, and just report that up to next person, and then sometimes even make the report for my government advisor that goes up to the next level. Um, and It's not doing those reports. I don't like. Um, I would say a division director is not. It's not a role I like. That's for sure. I like that area director role. Get involved with those clubs. Um, if they need help, you can be that first line that they get help from. And then if you can, bring in a club coach to help them, bring in other support. You know, all right. So outside of being club leader and area director, tell us some lessons that you learned in Toastmasters and how you apply them.
9 seconds thinking, 1 second acting. When it comes to Toastmasters, I always ground myself by beginning every speech with the three sentences: be here now. One of my first mentors in Bella Toastmasters sadly has long since moved on. I'm hoping to touch base with him sometime before the end of the year. Taught me this and has always played a central role in my role as a public speaker. First of all, be present, find yourself, realize the reality of the moment. Be here and be don't think about anywhere else. Just show the everyone in the room that you are part of them and you are going to communicate to every possible seat and potential seat in the audience. And now, tomorrow is an illusion, yesterday is a dream, today is a gift. That's why they call it the present. And that I think is one of the most important nuances of all perspective. Even though in the time it takes for your body to detect the visual and audio senses that my physical form is sending to it, it's already the past, and we are all simply a memory. And yet, in this, as we ride the wave of this moment, staring blindly into the event horizon, we can only appreciate memory for what it provides us as we contemplate the future and plan for it in in the present. It's one of those nuances of human existence that we fail to appreciate because we're too speculative of the future and anchor and encumbered by the past that we fail to see the make peace with the three versions of ourselves therein. So that's one thing I've learned. And what was the other question?
No, that's good. I don't think I
Okay.
asked another question. I was how you apply them, but we can hold off on
Oh
that for
yeah.
now.
Well,
I really like
I try to apply them with every
like,
communicative task I'm given.
so. you were talking about the past, and and you kind of touched on um, well, be in the present, and because the past is a memory, and then your memory your memory is tied to the emotions that you feel. So when you're present and you're engaged with the audience, you're there for them. They're going to remember your message better because you're going to make an emotional impact on them. That is how people remember. So the that skill right there, using those say it again for me. Be here,
Be here now. Three
be
sentences.
here now. Yes. Using that to for speaking to people, to for communication, it's so important because your your connection with people is through conversation. That is sometimes your entire relationship with people is just the conversations that you have, and they don't remember the words that you said as much as the emotional impact that it had on them. In fact, what you remember of the past, you know, is your version, your perspective, and it may not be the complete truth. Your brain's gonna fill in gaps that you don't remember correctly with how that feeling was for you. So if it was positive, then it's gonna fill it in with positive stuff, and the words that the person used might not have been as flowery as you remember, but that's what you're going to remember, and that's the impact you're going to make. So if you want to help somebody remember your message, yeah, make an emotional impact. um be here now. I love it. That's great. That's a great lesson to take away. um and the mentor that you have that instilled that in you, they did a great job. All right. What do you feel that you've accomplished in Toastmasters that's pushed your career forward? We talked a little bit about some of the impacts you made on platforms, um, but what do you feel you accomplished that's really pushed you forward?
I think it's mostly my ability to slow down. I know I feel like I've had a lot of setbacks in my career, and education, and I need to catch up with everyone my age to obtain that career persona that I think everyone else has, but I don't. But in doing so, I think I fail to appreciate how important it is to spend more time contemplating your next words than trying to squeeze another sentence in. It feels like there's so much else I want to accomplish and so much I want to say, yet all the words will be meaningless if they don't have a set direction and a set plan accordingly. Of course, we make plans and God laughs, but I think part of understanding who we are is how we plan for the future and execute accordingly. Like Lieutenant General Susan B. Helms taught us what the first military woman in space, and I got the pleasure of meeting when I was in Washington. When you're in that kind of environment, spend and you only have 10 seconds to act, spend 9 seconds planning, 1 second acting. I think that's probably one of the things that we fail to appreciate in Toastmasters. The best Toastmasters, the ones we see that winning all the contests, have pauses. They slow down. They talk at much slower than they can type. And they make sure that they use effective silence. True silence will let you and the audience appreciate what you've said, let it resonate. Not just pause for effect, but pause for impact. And in doing so, you also give yourself enough breathing time to fully balance your own breath and give the next word all the more fluently.
9 seconds planning, 1 second acting. That's perfect. That's completely sums up preparation for public speaking, preparation for anything really. You talked about contests or contestants that win. You are correct. They've taken so much time to prepare for that moment, to plan out their speech, to plan out how exactly that they're going to say something. And they've said it so many times that they don't have to think about it anymore. Because when you stop to think, that's when you do the that's when you look away from your audience and look up at the sky or the ceiling or your shoes, the floor. That's when you disengage from your audience. The pause, that dramatic effect, keeps you connected, gives them time to wonder about what the next thing you're going to say is, how they're connected to it, um, and maybe something else that they want. So if you ask a question, you got to give them time to think about it, time to ponder. So I love that saying. Um, I'm gonna I'm not stealing it, but
Please.
that's just something that I'm gonna have to repeat. And you said it was
You can't steal it because I'm giving it to you.
right. What was the astronaut's name?
Lieutenant General Susan B. Helms, best known as the first female military officer in space.
All right. Thank you for repeating that for me, and for our audience. That's a great lesson to take home. I'm sure she's got a book out there with plenty of that in it. Um, all right, so Mark, you still do Toastmasters. You're still at the Bel Air Toastmasters Club, and you're serving as an area director right now. Um, why do you still do Toastmasters?
Well, networking for one, be making the professional skills up to date for another. I know as you do that communication is like any other muscle. If we don't constantly exercise it, we're letting it go lethargic. And as I pointed out in a Toastmasters brainstorming session a while ago on the similarities between Toastmasters and a gym, is that we owe it to ourselves to engage. If we're just sitting in the background or sitting in the audience waiting to be called on for table topics and occasionally participating, that's the equivalent of joining a gym just so you can sit in the lobby and watch TV. Yeah, you're going to the gym, but what are you really taking away from it? And I think that's why I continue to seek out Toastmaster clubs wherever I end up. And it's also just because I like the atmosphere. It's not just to work on my speaking skills. I could do that at home with some self-help to videos on YouTube, but it's because we're engaging with people. Even if it is sometimes even if it's only online, that can be helpful too. Because let's face it, in this post-COVID world, we need to be able to communicate, but also empathize online. It's no substitute for the real thing, but it's just another medium that we have to learn to master.
Yeah, I love that online has become more ingrained in our daily lives because I have so many friends and family that don't live close. And now I have this great way to interact with them, to reach out to them, um, to make them a closer, bigger part of my life through whether it's online gaming. Board Game Arena is a great place to just get together with a few friends. And I love board games.
I need to sign up for that.
Yeah, it's great, great little website and plenty of games on there. And then just getting together on Zoom or Discord and chatting. Uh, it's great. And then there's always the social media platforms for just you know keeping up with what people are doing, whether they're posting or you're posting, and then the messages you can send between. It's great to have this technology to keep us all connected. Um, but then to also have that social engagement when you get out, get to the club, meet people, see people in person, and engage with them. I think that's the word today, and you picked the right background for it.
Yep.
All right, Mark, it's been a pleasure talking to you. We've had a lot of fun today. We titled your biography, Hello World, and then we found out a bit about Marc's Toastmasters experience and what he's learned through it, whether it's Be Here Now or whether it's 9 seconds to plan and 1 second to act. Uh, Marc's got some lessons that he can share. Um, and thank you again for taking the time to help myself and other Toastmasters and future Toastmasters, because your answers are going to help them to have a better experience and reach new height in Toastmasters. So thank you, Marc, for being my guest today. This has been Evolving in Toastmasters, and thank you, listeners.
Thank you. Live long and prosper.
Same to you, buddy.